Price of a Rose. Chapter 8. After hearing Fern's story, the memories she spoke of triggered in my mind during the night. By this point, I've accepted that they are my memories and don't resist the natural instincts that come to me in the dream. I am in the library again, reading by the moonlight. A flicker of candlelight pulls me away from the tale of a dashing hero. As I peer out the window, I see Shane's familiar cloak carrying a candlestick and a large sack. I watch as he enters the stables, and my curiosity can't be contained. Leaving my book behind, I head to the stables, treading quietly and avoiding the patrol. The stable door is cracked open, and I slip through without making any commotion. Laughing is up ahead, and I expect to find Shane drinking and gambling with brutes, but instead, he is sharing desserts with the young stable boys. I grit my teeth, and I have no doubt my past thoughts are similar to the ones I have now. Of course, he sneaks away to share food with children. Why would a player like him be here applauding his recent conquest with a group of gamblers? That would just be so predictable. My feet shift to the exit. I'm clearly trying to decide if my opinion of him has changed. Based on the other memories, this moment isn't enough to erase the disgusting taste of his daylight actions. Why be a horrible person in the light but pleasant in the dark? As I spin, my foot knocks into a bucket left on the floor. Shane and the children glance up, spotting my figure in the darkness. "Who is there? A horse thief?" Shane asks, standing to his feet and pulling out a sword. Behind him, the children arm themselves with an assortment of tools. I don't fancy being stabbed, so I step into the circle of light. Shane drops his sword as soon as he sees my face. Children follow his lead. "Arabelle? What are you doing out here?" "I wondered what you were doing. I saw you leave with a large bag and my suspicions were raised." He chuckles deep within his chest as he slides his sword back into its sheath. "If you thought I was burying a body, following me isn't the wisest course of action. Don't you think?" I fold my arms. The bag isn't big enough to hold a body unless... My eyes travel to the children and I gulp, hating the morbid thought. "Never mind that. You aren't covering up a murder, so I'll just be going now. Good night." I leave the stables swiftly, but Shane follows me into the night. He catches up to me and compasses me in his cloak. "Hold on, it's cold out tonight. I'll escort you back to your room." "You are downright confusing. Do you know that? Why are you helping those children?" "Because they like sweets and I have plenty. Also, they are hard workers, so why not? Plenty of people like sweets and are hard workers." "You're right. You enjoy sweets too, don't you?" "I don't have any cake left, but you might be able to taste the frosting from my lips." I push away from his warmth while the cloak falls off my shoulders to his side. "You may earn children's loyalty with cake and pie, but you are not sweet." He keeps his distance. "That's true. I want their loyalty, but they also remind me of me. All of them have lost at least one parent, if not both. I sympathize with them." He sighs. "You know, they would love to hear a story. Can you read to them tomorrow night?" The dream fades, but I know what happens next. I agree and experience a side of Shane that only I know. He can be sincere and kind, but he hides that in the daylight because he is afraid of being taken advantage of by those around him. His father must have taught him that. I wish the world didn't see kindness as a weakness. How many problems could be solved if everyone was kind? When I wake up, I spend the morning preparing for the evening events. The majority of my preparation is simply deciding on what I'm going to do and say. Truthfully, it would be great to break the curse, but in order to do that, I have to fall in love with him. I don't know if I can do that. That's when my thoughts jump all around, leading back to home and my family. It's been so long since I've seen them. I want to know how the flowers are doing for my father. I also want to know if Danny and Sasha are making any plans yet. I hope he doesn't put it off because our brothers and sisters aren't married. Thinking of them makes me remember how I could tell they were in love the first time they met. Why were they so easy to read? Oh wait, I'm talking about Danny here. He can hide nothing from me. Of course, when I think of my sisters, my thoughts wander back to tonight and what might happen. What can Shane do to change my mind? Apparently, in Fern's eyes, he must do something he didn't do last time. I think of all the possible things she could have meant, but none makes sense besides one. He can free me. The only issue with him freeing me is that I might not return. I would arrive home and be grateful this is all over. I wouldn't have to spend the rest of my life fearing that Shane would snatch me away. Looking at myself in the mirror, I bounce a strand of my curly hair. It's gotten a little longer but still appears short. I smooth out my red gown. I searched the closet for an extended time, looking for a dress that suited me. This one caught my eye. It only has a few layers and barely touches the floor. Not to mention its lack of puffy sleeves. Plus, the material is breathable and has lovely roses attached to the bodice, accompanied by stems of gold. Aside from 2 roses at the waist, the skirt is void of any further embellishments. Fern puts half my hair up, pinning it with a golden clip. She then exchanges my stud earrings with red dangling jewels. She adjusts the off-the-shoulder sleeves and says I'm ready to go. I turn away from the mirror and head to the door. So much work was put into my appearance, so I have no doubt Shane stepped up his game too. I must tread carefully, but I enjoy feeling pretty regardless of the situation. As soon as I open my chamber door, music floods the halls along with light. I smile when I see floating spirits playing violins, harps, and all the other string instruments. For the first time, there's life in the castle. Down the hallway, Shane waits. I can't deny the physical attraction when he is so elegantly put together. Ned must have told him what dress I selected because Shane wears a black vest and a red shirt with a rose pinned to his chest. As I get closer, I see the vest also has a faint floral pattern. Shane's eyes gleam when he approaches me. When he looks me over, it feels different than all the other times, less judgmental and more polite. It reminds me of how Danny stared at Sasha. Shane's gaze holds a form of desire but not a lecherous one. I hardly know what to compare it to. Maybe it is a man paying reverence to an angel. No, that's still not quite right. Once he is about a foot or 2 in front of me, I bow my head to him. He smiles genuinely and extends his arm out to me. I breathe in, knowing this would happen. Slowly, I loop my arm through his, trying not to make it too apparent that I am nervous. Together, we walk to the dining room, where I'm shocked to find the plates set right next to each other instead of at the 2 heads of the table. Shane pulls out a chair for me. I sit down and he pushes the chair back in. Since he does it so quickly, I grip the armrests. He smiles timidly. Sorry about that. I have more strength than I know. It's fine, I say as he sits down in his own chair. We begin to eat. I closely observe him the entire time. He, on the other hand, carefully eats properly to impress me. It's funny to watch him put his best foot forward. If he thinks I'm going to fall in love with him over table manners, it isn't going to work. He better have something more clever up his sleeve if that's his goal tonight. So, Arabelle, is there anything else you like to do besides reading? He asks, undoubtedly having asked the question before. It is prudent of him to remember I don't have all my memories of my time here. Yes, I say while wiping my mouth with my napkin. I like writing and learning, but I'm sure you find that no different from reading. Other than that, I like talking to my brother, Danny. Does he understand you more than the rest of your siblings? I smile. Yes, but I also love talking to my parents. They are always insightful to how I feel and think. I remember meeting your father. He visited the castle to see you and your sisters once. He is a businessman, right? If I recall, he worked with fishermen, made good money, and had many connections. It's why you and your sisters were invited in the first place. Regardless, he struck me as a dedicated father and husband. He really valued family. My head looks down at my plate, trying not to cry in front of Shane. Yeah, he did. He blinks, did? Arabelle, he isn't. I squeeze my eyes shut, clenching the spoon in my hand. That's why I wanted the rose. Roses were his favorite, so they remind me of him. His hand touches mine softly. I open my eyes and look at him, astonished. There it is, the sympathy he had for those children. He could be a great man if he maintained his temper and didn't see kindness as something to be exploited. I remember reading to the stable boys. What happened to them? They aren't cursed too, right? I ask. Shane draws his hand away. No, the Creator spared all the children from the curse. Their minds were wiped like the rest of my guests. I suspect she gave them pleasant memories and places to stay. However, many of their parents remain here. So, she did end up separating families. But you've done the same, I note, which makes him wince. Shane, I've been wondering, how many girls have been here since your curse, and what happened to them? Shane looks down at his plate. Many were scared off immediately, never entering the palace walls. Some spirits grew restless, so when another girl came, they possessed her. They hoped to twist her mind, but all they did was leave an empty shell. There were 3 others after her. I eventually let them go because I saw there was no chance. They were all terrified. I don't know what happened to them after they left the castle grounds. They probably got lost in the forest or abducted by those men who found me. I hope not. I'll admit I enjoyed playing with women's feelings, but seeing them lose their minds and their lives was never a game I wished to play. There was one girl, the one right before you. She stayed for about a month. She was determined to break the curse once Ned told her the truth. I couldn't bring myself to love her despite her efforts. But she didn't love me either. She fled to the castle to escape an arranged marriage. She figured her betrothed wouldn't follow into a haunted castle. I clicked my tongue, realizing who the woman's betrothed was. Well, she was right about that. Guess that explains why she never returned home. Was he one of the men you were with? Yes, he was the one that ran at the first sign of danger. I can see why she wasn't impressed. I pause, thinking about how Shane couldn't love a girl who stayed in the castle of her own accord. Why couldn't you love her? Sounds like it was the perfect opportunity. He rested an elbow on the armrest of his chair, pressing his fingers to his cheek. I still loved you. I twist my lips, not satisfied with his answer. You say that, but I still don't understand. Fern said I remind you of your mother, but I want to hear you explain it. Shane answers without a second thought. You're intelligent but a bit naive. You like to think you know the world based on your reading, yet the world disappoints you. You believe in the commitment of marriage and value compromise. These are strengths and weaknesses my mother had as well. I can't protest. He's got me nailed, but his words don't particularly come off as romantic. Of course, that only proves his point. I've been expecting love to shape a certain way because of what I've read, whether from psychology or romance books. It has made me overly cautious and critical. But I had been right about some of the men my sisters have fawned over, so it isn't entirely wrong, is it? Shane chuckles at my silence. I've surprised you, haven't I? But those aren't necessarily the reasons I fell in love with you. You can't change me, Arabelle, but you did inspire me to be a better man. Sadly, I didn't change enough. I continued to flaunt my wealth and encouraged vanity. I thought I could satisfy you by occasionally throwing money at beggars and hosting a charity ball. It was all propaganda, a skill I learned from my father. I kept more funds from the donations than I gave to the people. You must have seen right through my act. And those kids, I treated them to cakes to ease my own guilty conscience. I didn't realize it then, but I can see it now. You are being extremely talkative. I get out while he takes the time to sip from his goblet. He corrects me. No, I'm being honest. My parents failed in marriage because they did not communicate with and trust each other. I initially followed my father's guidance in everything I did, but being cursed gave me a lot of time to think. I should have committed myself to you to prove my love, not used jealousy and manipulation. You were right to turn me away. Shane stands and takes my hand after we finish our food in silence. The atmosphere shifts from reflective to cozy. He smiles, and his winter eyes are filled with warmth. How about a dance? He asks. I nod before letting him guide me to the ballroom. Before we walk inside, I grip his hand tighter. He glances at me, not understanding my hesitation. Are you sure you want to go in there? Have you ever been in there since the curse began? He brushes a knuckle against my skin. I think stepping inside with you will help. To prove this, he opens the door. Like in my memories, the ballroom shimmers, unlike when I last explored it. Of course, the broken pillars couldn't be helped, but besides that, everything looks like it did back then. Soft music plays for us as we enter. Together, we walk to the center. I put my free hand on his shoulder, and he places his hand on my waist, bringing me closer. Because of our proximity, my heart beats faster. I don't know if I'm afraid or experiencing something more dangerous. Once we begin dancing, I study the throb in my chest. Everything around me blurs as we dance, and then memories flood my mind. I remember us catching each other staring at dinner parties. I remember more late nights we spent with the stable boys. I remember telling Shane about Danny and how Danny was my best friend. I remember averting my gaze when Shane toyed with the other girls, pleasing them to please their rich fathers. In one memory, Shane corners me in the hallway because I stopped attending all the social events he put on for the ladies. He asks me, "Why aren't you having tea with your sisters?" Some magically infused drink that relieves stress. Very expensive and worth a taste. I lift my chin and say, because there are more important things to do, like finding a better match for my sisters. Then I dodge around him and continue down the hall. When all the memories of him settle, I glance at the present Shane before me. He looks at me, oblivious to what I'm currently experiencing. I decide not to mention it, so we continue to dance as I remember a final memory. You've been troubled since returning home, Arabelle. What's wrong? My father asks, leaning down by me in our old flower garden. He stares at the roses I'm planting. He touches them lightly. These are exquisite. I love them. I sigh, stopping briefly with my hands still in the dirt. Why did we leave, Father? I can't remember what our purpose was. All I know is that I came back, deciding roses were my favorite flower. I've never had a favorite. He hums. You know, I can't remember where you girls went either. Strange. But if you asked me, you must have fallen in love. I flush and stammer out. In love with who? I can't remember anything about our journey, and Mia and Janissa claim we stayed at a cute cabin by a lake void of people. Who could I have fallen in love with? And why would I forget them so easily? All right, maybe I'm wrong. Perhaps you just met someone who inspired you. I stare at the flower petals before facing my father. How did you know that you loved Mother? My father smiles, thinking upon a fond memory. I always loved her. I thought our love was friendship, and it was when we started off, but soon I couldn't stop thinking about her. And when other men courted her, I got jealous. I told myself it was because of my protective instincts. Then I missed her more and more, even when I was standing right next to her. That's when her fingertips brushed mine. I kissed her right there without even giving it a second thought. Thankfully, she returned my feelings. Love is when you both choose the other, Arabelle. Never settle for someone who doesn't love you like you love them. You should be giving each other equal amounts of affection and trust. The last of the memory fades with my father's smiling face. I wonder why that memory was taken away when it was just a sweet chat with my father. I miss him so much, and the pain makes my eyes tear up. I can't do this anymore. My head sinks into Shane's chest. For the time being, I need something solid and real. I'm thunderstruck when I hear Shane's heart pounding. For some reason, I thought his heart didn't beat at all. I don't know why I assumed that. Perhaps because he transformed into a spirit? Without a word, Shane moves his hand from my waist to my upper back like a shielding embrace. Then his head rests on top of mine. It all feels so comfortable, and it crosses my mind that maybe he spiked the drinks with that magical herb he mentioned in my memories. No, I felt this peace during those nights with him way back when. I know I did. I didn't love him, but I did care for him. You actually have a heart, I say, moving my head to look up at him, which is a huge misstep. We stare at each other, and our feet no longer move to the music. I blink, waiting for Shane to say something. Did you think I didn't? He whispers, lifting my chin and moving forward. I gasp and turn my head away. His lips hover by the corners of my mouth, and I want to strangle myself for wanting him to kiss me. I'm letting my hunger for human contact get to me. Sorry, he says, making space between us. We'll take that walk. How does that sound? I nod, unable to say anything else. Shane smiles and guides me out of the ballroom, down a short corridor and to the world outside. Makes me think back to when I tried breaking down the doors to escape. The fresh night air flows into my lungs. It smells sweet and clear. The full moon shines brightly with dozens and dozens of stars. It is a beautiful sight. I'm so focused on it that I forget Shane is even there. When he touches my shoulder, I remember I'm not alone. My mouth drops a little when I see him down on one knee, holding a rose in one hand. Here he is again, repeating what he has already tried. His head is down, and his hand holds a trembling rose. He is terrified of another rejection. Arabelle, do you love me? I have been worrying about this moment all day. I sigh, then bend my knees down a little, touching his hand so it will stop shaking. He looks up at me, fear written in the crease on his forehead. I press my lips together and stare at the stars. I'm sorry, but I can't. Not when I'm your prisoner. No matter how you look at it or try to make it sound better, I am forced to be here, I say. He lays his free hand on my cheek. I know I just. We stand and he says, You're no longer my prisoner. Tomorrow night, when the barrier is gone, you can go to your family. I do not expect you to return here ever again. His statement startles me. He's setting me free even when time is running out to break the curse. Finally, he has seen reason and understands why it has never worked between us. Why would you? I begin. Because I wasn't doing anything to show you I loved you. And maybe you won't ever love me, but at least I know I finally put you before myself. I have 3 months left, so I still have time to save my staff. Maybe the Creator will be merciful and free them at the very least if I fail to love and be loved. Freeing me isn't something I should thank my captor for. Instead, I should be running before he changes his mind, but the thank you slips out. Thank you. I've missed my family so much, and maybe I can find a nice girl for you. You can visit the village and get to know her properly. Then the curse will be broken. Arabelle, he says, stopping me before I say more. I am and never will be your brother. I don't want the girl I love to set me up with someone else. I just wanted to be sure you didn't kidnap anyone again. He laughs and rests a hand on my head. I promise. And you can't take off just yet, remember? So you really have no control over the barrier? I ask. He shakes his head. Aside from kicking more staff members into it, no. If you remember, this is my prison cell too. However, the Creator did make it so people could find me or for me to find them. Did you ever leave? Besides to chase after me, of course. Yes, but I changed into that hideous demon once night fell. Then he pulls something out of his vest's pocket. So I got my fill of the world with this. I look to see what he has. It's the small hand mirror I saw the first time I was supposed to have dinner with him. He hands it to me. Ask it to show you something. Holding the mirror up, I say, show me my family. The mirror changes and it displays images of my family. Flint and Gil count coins by candlelight in the kitchen. Mia and Janissa sew dresses in their room. Then Danny sits outside with Sasha, looking at the stars. I press a hand to my lips and my smile spreads. After that, the mirror shows my mother. She sits in our bedroom, staring at my empty bed. My smile fades. She must be heartbroken, having lost my father and me. I touch the mirror and say, "Don't worry, Mom. I'm coming home."